The Vergas Show is brought to you by Spanky Stone Hearth, casual fine dining on beautiful Rose Lake. Vergas State Bank, your locally owned community full-service bank. Vergas Event Center for gatherings large or small, including weddings. Vergas Liquor Store, where all the profits profit Vergas.
Make the right call. Call Hanson's, the most trusted name in plumbing and heating.
Hi, welcome to the Vergas Show. I'm Sherry Hanson. Thanks for joining me today. You're going to get a second segment of Jean Saylor. Jean and her husband Archie, of course, anybody from Vergas, Frazee area can recall them raising their 8 children on Rose Lake just outside of Vergas. And Archie, of course, was a coach, teacher in the Perham Frazee district, but Jean had a lot going on too. I remember growing up watching the Frazee paper and seeing the jottings from Jean. She would have her poem in there each week, and so she turned 100 years old just this past December, and so we're going to hear her story. Her son Tony is here asking some of those questions as he went through a lot of that life with her, and just sit back and enjoy.
Hi, we're back for the third and final episode talking to Jean Saylor, who's 100 years old and almost 3 months. And we've talked about growing up on the farm, growing up during the Depression and during World War II, and then starting a family when my dad returned from serving over in England for a couple of years, and then about purchasing Rosehaven Resort. Now, Mom, with the 8 kids, we were all involved in athletics. Dad was a coach, umpire, a referee. And meanwhile, you must have held down the ground at home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How was it like having 8 kids and they're all shooting off in different directions playing sports and Dad's coaching? How did that go?
Well, we managed to get through it, but it wasn't easy.
Okay. Can you tell us about that Dad had been teaching at Frazee? And my 3 oldest brothers graduated from Frazee, but the rest of us graduated from Perham. What happened there?
Well, we decided to make a change and got a job in Perham. So that's where the rest of them graduated from.
Yeah. Are your favorite colors green and white or black and gold?
Well, I spent a great deal of my life sitting on bleachers, watching games.
And you never cared for athletics that much, did you?
No.
Now, I have a side note here. Mom has said that her hearing is not very good because of all the bands and the cheering going on at all these games, right?
Yeah.
Now, over the years, you went from no electricity in your house, no indoor plumbing. Of course, there was no TVs back then. What are some of the technological changes that you've seen that have kind of amazed you?
Well, I can't believe these phones that people carry, how much information they can get in those and where it all comes from. It's amazing.
What about things like, would you have died to have a microwave oven growing with all these kids? A microwave oven?
Well, I suppose it would have made a difference, but you get used to what you have and make it work.
Okay. Now, speaking of technology, you went from a car that maybe went about 30 miles an hour to watching a man land on the moon.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about the space program and when people landed on the moon?
No, I don't. I just accepted it and didn't worry about how it could happen.
And also, you went through the Great Depression, you went through World War II, and then the 60s hit, and things kind of got a little radical. People started growing their hair out long, and the music changed a lot. But another thing that was very historic was the assassination of John Kennedy. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it was a sad day.
Okay. And just to let people know, I remember one of the first things I remember in my life was watching when the airplane landed back in Washington, and they unloaded the coffin, and Jackie was standing in the doorway of the airplane, and she still had the same dress on with the blood on it. That was one of the first things I ever remember of my childhood. But I do remember watching the funeral and the long parade down the boulevard to take him to his final resting place. Now, one thing that you have done, and you've gotten kind of famous for this, is your poetry. How did you begin writing poetry, and where did your ideas come from?
Well, that's a good question. I don't really know how it got started, but when I, like I said, when I was late for school and Archie had me learn a poem, maybe that had something to do with it, but it got to be to the point where I would have the Frazee paper published it I think every week. I'm not sure if I wrote one for the paper every week or once a month. But,
and you also had 2 books, right? One was called From the Back Seat, and the other one was called I Would Rather Write Than Cook, Cookbook. And that one had poems and recipes.
Yes, yes.
All right. Do you have a favorite poem that you wrote?
Well, I can't think of one right offhand, but there's so many of them. I don't know if there is one book there or not.
Now, I remember you wrote some poems about Vergas. You wrote one about the Vergas loon. You wrote a poem about Bub Moe, who always used to work on our cars and stuff. And you wrote about a number of people that were in Frazee that you knew.
Yeah.
How were their reactions when you wrote a poem about them? Were they appreciative?
Well, they seem to be. We live next door to Trigloffs, and Mel, Mrs. Trigloff, collected the poems that were in the paper, and she gathered a whole bunch of them and brought them to me.
Okay. So, now, when you were, I believe, 98 years old, one of your poems was selected in Detroit Lakes to be on their poetry walk.
Right.
Where you must have been the oldest person ever to get that honor, I'm thinking.
Uh-huh. I don't remember even what poem I gave him, but...
Okay, and then you won a couple of writing awards when you were about 96 over in Wadena for their contest they had. Their newspaper had a contest. But when did you start writing poems, and when did you pretty much quit writing poems?
Well, I don't remember. It was something that I did once the kids were all in bed, I think, and it got quiet, and I wouldn't be interested in watching what Arch was watching on TV, so I don't know.
When you had 8 kids in the house, was your favorite time of the day when you finally got to put your head down and sleep? And let's remember that this was back before disposable diapers, right?
Right, yes. Right.
So you probably spent a lot of time doing laundry.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is the secret to a long life?
Well, you have to be Norwegian.
Yeah, my mom is 100% Norwegian. And I still remember Christmases. We would have a lot of Norwegian or Scandinavian food, right? And one of my favorites is torsk. We would have torsk for Christmas.
Yes. I'm trying to think. That was some kind of fish.
Some kind of fish. We're still wondering what kind. But I think they called it poor man's lobster, if I remember right.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Growing up, what were some of the Norwegian traditions you had?
Well, I wouldn't know what a Norwegian tradition was.
But tell us about Christmas time. What did your dad do at Christmas with the horses?
Well, we hitched them to an open sleigh and went to town to Grandma's. We spent Christmas Eve with her. That was about a 3-mile trip.
So that was the beginning of the one-horse open sleigh, right?
Well, it was I'm not sure if it was 1 or 2 horses, but Mother would heat bricks in the oven of the kitchen stove, wrap them up in a blanket and put them in the sleigh, and we'd cuddle around that until we got to Grandma's. Yeah.
That was the way to keep you guys warm, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Did they
Okay.
have real candles on their tree?
Did you have real candles on your tree or light bulbs?
Candles.
Wow.
Yeah. You have to be careful.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. So, and at Christmas, you probably got like one gift, right? And it was something that you needed rather than wanted.
Yeah.
What would be something that you would get? Would like clothing or mittens or?
Yeah, usually something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you get a stocking? Did it have?
That I don't remember.
No. Okay. If it was probably fruits and nuts and things like that, I suppose.
No.
Okay. So, is there, as we wrap up here, are there any other things you'd like to mention?
Well, I can't think of anything offhand, but I know that I can't imagine what it would be like not to have children. I have 8, and they live within 30 miles of me, all of them, and they're very attentive and good to take care of me. I don't know what I'd do without them. I can't imagine.
Well, you've been pretty fortunate. You've been fortunate, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I do believe you have a pretty strong faith as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you started out life as a Lutheran, and then you became a Catholic.
Right.
Okay. All right. And I do believe that on Sundays, someone still brings communion over for you, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Mom, I think we're going to wrap it up, and we really appreciate your time. And thanks for all you've done for not only me, but all the kids and grandkids and great-grandkids in the family.
Well, I appreciate the fact that they care enough to come and stop by. I had a granddaughter that came one day this week, and she has 8 children. The youngest one isn't a year old yet. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, say goodbye to our audience.
Take care.
Thanks for watching.